Hey everybody, this is Jack Hammer. Wanted to come on tonight and do my little 49er mailbag segment. Also be able to take some of your calls tonight. The call-in number, if you want to call in, or the call-in link is in the description. I'll also post over here in the comment section so that you have that as well if you want to call in for to share your thoughts on last night's big victory for the 49ers over the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. You know, looking back at yesterday's game, the 49ers, their strength and their identity is running the football. And they finally were able to come out and commit to it against Los Angeles on Monday night. What felt like a must-win game for the 49ers if they're going to be able to keep their playoff chances alive. And Kyle Shanahan was able to get his groove back, had a great game plan, and was just fantastic throughout. And his team didn't let him down either. Elijah Mitchell would lead a rushing attack that saw the 49ers relentlessly challenge the Rams defense on the way to 156 yards on a whopping 44 attempts. That was just a huge number, and according to Shanahan and the comments he made after the game, that was a little bit above their goal. They went into this game with a team goal of hitting 40 rushing attempts, so to come out with 44, that's pretty impressive and not something that you see very often in the NFL. You know, and sticking with the running game not only helped San Francisco keep the ball away from the Rams offense, it helped the offense by having only a handful of third down situations with more than 7 yards to go. This played a large role in the offense converting on 8 of their 14 third down attempts against the Rams on Monday night. This leads right into the first question for this week's mailbag, and it comes from Real Sunil. He asked, why was the running game so effective this week, although they were using a third-string right tackle? And a lot of the success on Monday night really for the 49ers was their ability to, especially early on, to force the Los Angeles defense into playing 5 defensive backs. And this was possible due to the versatility of Deebo Samuel and Jeff Wilson Jr. and what they bring to the table. The presence of Samuel and Wilson on the field allowed the 49ers to use 11 personnel, which means 1 running back and 1 tight end, which usually is a grouping that would signal pass. So Los Angeles then counters that by adding their 5th defensive back on the field, the nickel look basically. And that difference with the 49ers, though, is that Samuel, even though he's a wide receiver, he can run the ball like a running back. And while Wilson is now a halfback, he has experience in the NFL as a fullback. So those two have some versatility there that Kyle Shanahan was able to utilize, and especially on the first drive, a little bit on the second one as well, and at different times throughout the game. But it was extremely effective in that first drive when the 49ers went 18 plays, 93 yards, I believe it was, for the touchdown to start the game off. You know, so in addition to that game plan by Shanahan, the Rams defense doesn't have a lot of strength at the second level. Their starting linebacker, Troy Reeder, he's the one that was in when they were in their nickel early on. He once again proved to be a weak link in the middle of the Rams defense. And while Jalen Ramsey is a heck of a cover corner, he doesn't quite strike the fear in the hearts of opposing offenses with his physicality. And those two players were put in the crosshairs by Shannon early and often on Monday night in the running game as well in the pass. Do have a couple of folks that have called in, so I'm going to jump on over to those real quick before we get on to the next question, or at least I'll get one of these in. I'm going to start off with Korean 49er. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Jack. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good seeing you too. A couple questions for you. It was a nice victory against the Rams. I can never take a victory away, but to me, I feel like this team could easily let down against Jacksonville because I know that Jacksonville's not a good team, but Jacksonville did sneak up and beat Buffalo, and I feel that they could do that to the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and that's actually one of the topics that was asked, can the 49ers keep this intensity up throughout the entire season or really for the rest of the year? And that's the big question. That was the main question that I had in walking out of the stadium last night, really into the press conference after the game was, can this team play at this level throughout the rest of the season? And that's something that we haven't seen yet. I don't even know if saying intensity is the right word or this level. It's just the ability to not make mistakes, not make the big mistake, not turning the ball over, just playing smart, sound football for 4 quarters. That's just something we haven't really seen out of them so far this year.
Yeah, I agree with that because I don't think we can talk playoffs until they go on a streak of, let's say, winning 4 out of their next 5 games. They need to do that before there's any talk of at least a potential playoff appearance.
Yeah, I think. Well, if they can rip off, let's say, if they can rip off, say, 3 or 4 games in a row here, right? If they can, even if they just win the next 3, that's going to put them 2 games over 500. And if they can get themselves from where they were at 3-5 to 7-5, I think we're looking at them maybe not even as a 7th seed. We might even be looking at them at as high as maybe fighting for the 6th seed in the playoffs. Quite, with the way everybody is kind of in front of them and kind of falling up and down at that level. If they can get on a roll here, they can definitely get themselves into the playoffs. It's just a matter of continuing to do what they did last night.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for the game against Jacksonville, do you see Trey Sermon actually playing in the game? Because we have Mostert and Mitchell out with injuries. Do you actually see that happening?
Do I see who playing again? I'm sorry.
Trey Sermon.
Um, I don't know how much we're going to see of him. That's one of the things last night. I do like to watch Elijah Mitchell run the ball. I'm really excited about the fact that they tried running, that they had 44 attempts. That was great. I would have liked to have seen Sermon get some of those carries instead of Mitchell, especially in the second half when the game was, at 31-7, 31-10. Instead of having Mitchell taking the pounding at that point, it would have been nice to let Sermon get out there and just get some reps and kind of get his legs underneath him so that when they could use him maybe down the road or just so that the main guy doesn't take the pounding.
I agree with that. So, and there's one last point that kind of got me got my goad up a little bit. I think it was when Kyle talked about Trey and he said Trey knows the entire playbook, but just doesn't have the experience. Yes. Only because I felt that this season was not a potential, let's just say, make to the NFC Championship game or beyond kind of season. I wanted to see Trey at least get a little bit more playing time because that's just how I felt. I'm not saying who knows what the rest of the season will entail in wins and losses wise, but to me that just kind of caught my attention when Kyle said that during the call.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's definitely something that I know caught the ear of a lot of folks. I'm not so sure. I know that he knows the playbook. I would feel like he does. I think the deal with Lance was I think he's known the playbook all along. I think, he learned it pretty early. I don't think the issue is him learning the playbook. I think Lance's issue is more the ability to be accurate with his throws and know where to go with the ball. I think that's more of his issue. I think that there's a good possibility that he's going to go into this offseason and he's going to have to really work on that stuff. It's a tough situation for quarterbacks, especially with guys like Lance, right? Because Lance, we know from everything that we've heard and everybody we've talked to that Lance is a smart guy. So learning the playbook wasn't going to be an issue for him. It was going to be being able to play at the speed of the game that the NFL requires. And it was also going to be his ability to really do things that he didn't do in college and were things that we've never seen him be able to do. He's never, in college, he was never a really good downfield thrower of the football. He was really good in that 10 and under range. But when it got from 10 plus, his accuracy numbers really dropped. And he did hit some big shot plays and stuff in college, but he had guys that were usually wide open. They usually weren't tight window throws down the field when he was throwing those deep shots. So it didn't have to be a really good pass. And so for him to get to the next level in the NFL, I think we're going to have to see him improve beyond what he's been in the past. And it'll be interesting to see if he can get himself there. That's part of why I liked who I liked in the draft, was because you could see him making NFL level throws on a regular basis. And he's kind of continued that on. And Lance is kind of, to me, has kind of continued to be the same guy we saw at North Dakota State so far with the 49ers. So we'll see. I think we'll see. It'll be interesting. The other thing that'll be something to monitor is how much he gets onto the field. Is he going to get out in those packages? a game like last night again, where you're up 31-10, maybe throw them in for a series or two at the end of the game when the game's kind of out of reach, and you're even if you're mostly just going to be handing the ball off, get them on the field and let them take some snaps and kind of get a feel for the game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When they were up 31-7 and 31-10, what's
Mm-hmm.
the harm in putting Trey in and having him just hand off to the running back? I didn't see any harm or foul in doing that. I mean,
Yeah,
you have him out there, you have him seeing an NFL level defenses, and that would help him, in the future whenever he does get to be the full time starter.
correct. Yeah, and that's those are kind of the moments that you want to put him in there. Maybe even let him throw a short pass or two, whatever. So yeah, I hear you there. That's definitely a good point to look at. Is both the Treys should have been in the game at the end there.
Yeah. So, thank you for taking my call, Jack. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
no problem.
yeah, have a great night.
You too.
All right, all right. That's the great Korean 49er comes on every week. One of the regulars and does a great job with his calls and his questions. So always appreciate that. Jumping over to we talked about one of the questions that was from the mailbag, which was regarding the confidence that the 49ers can bring this energy, going forward in games, and that's something that we're going to find out, I think, this week. Was it a one-off effort or was it not? And part of that is this Jacksonville game is one of those that just sets up really, really as a tough game for the 49ers. When you look at this game, when the schedule first came out, it jumped out to me at least as a potential trap game for the 49ers. It was playing on a Monday night at home, then having to travel cross country, having a short week going to Florida, and then on top of that, having it be a 10 a.m. start. That looked like it was going to. That was almost like a scheduled loss if it was against anybody other than the Jaguars, and the fact that it was the Jaguars was the only reason that you kind of just shrugged it off. But then you go out and you realize that the Jaguars have been playing pretty good football the last 4 weeks. They've won 2 of their last 4. They got blown out up in Seattle. Was their one really bad loss, but other than that, they have they beat the Dolphins out in London. They had a tight game with Indianapolis last week, and they also had the big victory over Buffalo just 2 weeks ago when they beat the Bills 9-6. So if the 49ers come out this week and they play like they've been playing through the first 8 weeks of the season or 9 weeks of the season, not including last night on Monday night, this is going to be a game for the 49ers that's going to be really tough. So I don't know if I quite buy in quite yet that they've righted their wrongs and they're ready to move forward and continually win. I think we're going to learn a lot about them on Sunday when they take on the Jaguars. So, hey, Amin, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I haven't talked to you in a while. And yes, Joe Montana is still better than Tom Brady. Here's the link real quick too if you guys want it. But I'm going to jump over to OG 49er. He's in the waiting for me to call him. Hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you in a while.
Man, I've just been busy because working and then like almost getting off at 7 is like mentally I'm just drained because I'm taking calls back to back to back to back to back. So mentally I've been tired.
Yeah, I hear you.
But getting to what you were saying, yeah, it's one game. I'm super proud of my team. I'm super proud of the defense. I mean, they were tackling with conviction. They were hitting like playing pissed off football. So I'm very happy. All I gotta say is welcome back defense. And for the DBs, where the hell have you been at? I mean, I was actually proud of him. Only everybody ripping Josh Norman about that missed time jump. Jack, I play defensive back. It's happened to me a few times. I've missed time my jumps. I've got scored on like that. So it happens. All I gotta say is, you know, the trick is look at the trajectory of the ball. If it's coming, if it's coming to you, it's coming down towards you, you go for the ball, you jump. But if it's still coming down, but the ball is still kind of going over your head, then you gotta, time that jump. So I've been a victim of that. So I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It was just kind of it was a bad look from where I was watching the game, but luckily for the 49ers, I think in this game the 49ers defense caught a break. There were, it was great to see the interception by Jimmy Ward, but and great that he was in the right spot at the right time, right? I mean,
Right.
the first time, just a miscommunication between the quarterback and the receiver on that first interception. That was a ball that got thrown to up to nobody,
Right.
and then the second one bounces off the tight end's hands right into his head, right into his hand to Ward's hands for a touchdown. But hey, you got to be in the right place to take advantage of those things. He made the plays that mattered, and the 49ers offense was able to score, and hold their part, and you get the 14-0 lead. The defense gives up a score, but then the offense goes right back down the field on a long drive. I'm just a little nervous still about this defense and their ability to stop
Yes.
teams from going up and down the field on them.
And that's one of the things too. Okay, we won one game. That's cool, but we can't have a letdown against Jacksonville like what happened in 2019 when we beat the Saints, and then all of a sudden we lost to a garbage Atlanta team that year. So I hope it's not deja vu. I'm hoping it's not deja vu all over again, but I'm hoping they'll bring that same intensity. That's the one thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That Atlanta game coming off of the big game in New Orleans, that's a really good one. Kind of that trap fallback kind of game because of the intensity of the one before. So yeah, that's a really good one. I hadn't even really thought about that, but now that you mentioned it, that's a really good possibility.
Now, here's my critique, Jack. Here's my critique. We still need a better rush because Nick Bosa can't do everything by himself. We still need a better rush. But at the same time, I think in this game, the DBs have learned don't rely on the D line to get there. You just do your job, stick to your man. As I like to say when I coach my sons, follow the receiver everywhere. If he goes to his bus, you go sit with him. If he goes to the restroom, you follow him. So that's what you call analogy I like to use.
There you go. No, that's a good one. That's something that I've heard a number of times as well. I think for the 49ers defense this week, they were able to catch a little bit of getting the big lead that they did really helped them out because they were able to play a little deeper and kind of keep things in front of them. So and so they didn't have those shots over the top and stuff like that, like we've seen. We didn't really see the ball getting deep to them much, but I agree with you on the lack of pass rush. There just is not a consistent pass rush outside of Nick Bosa. He's not really getting help from anywhere else, and that's an issue that they need to figure out.
What happened to that dude we got from the Texans? I can't pronounce his name, but what happened to him?
Yeah, Charles Omenihu. He actually made he'd been traded right before last week's game against Arizona that week. He didn't dress against Arizona, but he was dressed last night, and he got on the field for a few snaps towards the end of the game. And then when Arizona got into the red zone I think it was their last drive, they pulled him out. But he had been in the first few plays of that game, rushing from the interior.
I think the momentum changed when DJ Jones, and big shout out to DJ Jones, I'm making a key tackle. That was huge when they stopped him on that fake field goal. That was huge. Yeah. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was a big moment in the game. Instead of getting 3 points, they get nothing of it and out of it, and that's kind of the way the whole second from that point on, the whole rest of the game. That's kind of how it played out. The Rams moved the ball good on the 49ers, or moved it down. I shouldn't even say they moved it good because they had in the third quarter they had a couple three and outs, I believe. I have to go back and look, but they definitely moved the ball their last couple possessions down into field goal range and came away with nothing both times.
And here's what one more thing, Jack, but here's the thing that I'm not liking still. I don't know if they're playing zone or it's both man and zone, but I don't like the fact that they're lining up, like, let's hypothetically, let's say they're playing man. Let's pretend. I don't like the fact that they're using the sideline as their enemy instead of their friend. What I mean by that is how the DBs are lined up on the outside shoulder instead of the inside shoulder to get inside leverage. I still don't like the way they're lined up like that. I don't know who's coaching them like that, but that's something I wouldn't do.
Yeah, that's definitely the technique that they're being taught because you're seeing everybody do it. And I hear what you're saying. You're basically wanting them to be using that as another defender and taking advantage of that position on the field. And you're right, that is something that they haven't really done all that well.
Because they're getting beat inside big time. Look what happened in the trail position. I think who was it? Mosley, I think it was, when he got beat out. I think it was Jefferson. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. When Jefferson went in the inside, and he got inside Mosley so easy. So and Mosley was in a triple position. And it is true, Jack. Like I said, I played the position. When you get beat inside and get in a trail position, it's hard to catch up with the receiver unless you're getting help from the safety or linebacker. But if you're going 1-on-1, it's hard to catch up with them. And I'm not going to lie about that. So that's why I say I don't like the way they're lined up. That's basically what I saw.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's definitely something that their secondary is scrapping, right on the corners. They're scrapping, and uh, especially it's kind of been going across the board with these guys for the last few weeks, struggling in pass protection or
So,
pass defense. So
so keep an eye on that, Jack. 'Cause look at the way lined up. You'll know what I'm talking about.
okay, I definitely will. I'll keep an eye on it as I move forward. I'll take a look at the game film and get back to you on that.
All right, definitely. Thank you, Jack, for taking my call.
All right, no problem. You have a good night.
You too.
All right. And real quick, before I get back into the mailbag, I'm going to take a look at this one from the Big 25. This still isn't a playoff team. They just have the Rams number. I see them possibly beating the Jags and Texans, and that's probably it. I think the 49ers are a little bit better than that. The 49ers offense is really good. Their defense just needs to be able to be a little more consistent. Last night, I just looked it up, and they did have a really good stretch there in the third quarter. They did very well against the Rams offense. They went 3 and out on all those possessions for the Rams. I think it was 3 straight 3 and outs by the 49er defense. And it wasn't until the fourth quarter that they gave up some yardage. At that point, it's kind of garbage time. So they were bending but not breaking, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to handle that. It's going to be fun to watch them going up against another rookie quarterback as well in Trevor Lawrence out there in Jacksonville. And Bryant says that was a great game. I agree. It was a fantastic game from the 49ers all around. One of the best efforts we've seen from them all the way. Really, I don't even know if we saw a game of that type from them last year in their victories. I know they had the 24-16 win over the Rams. Maybe the game, probably the last time we saw them play like that was when they were in New York, right? When they played the Jets and the Giants. But beyond that, I don't know if we've seen the 49ers play a game like that where they were that dominant throughout in quite some time, really since 2019. Getting back to the mailbag questions, John Baker says, even though Jimmy is playing well, do you think it's time for Shanahan to incorporate Lance in the game plan just for a change of pace? And quite frankly, my short answer is no. Kyle Shanahan builds packages into the game plan every week for Lance. But unless the 49ers offense is falling on its face and not moving the ball, I don't really see them wanting to insert Lance into the game or having a need to insert him into the game. The staff has, as I wrote and mentioned a few weeks back, the coaching staff has continued to develop Lance throughout the season with the way that they're utilizing him on the scout team and the way that they're designing the scout team play cards and everything to be to look and feel like 49er plays, so that when he's calling those out, he's basically running stuff that he'd be running if he was running the 49ers offense. And I think when the time comes, I believe that the learning curve is going to be a little bit shorter for Lance than it has been for some of these other rookies. And in part, that's going to be because he had the opportunity to sit on the bench. He wasn't thrown out there right away. He's been able to come out and kind of get a feel for the NFL. He didn't look like a fish out of water when he made his first start. There were definitely some ups and downs in that game, but it wasn't awful. And I think that's something that he can build upon and will build upon when the time comes for him to be the starting quarterback again for the 49ers. And it might not happen this year. If the 49ers continue to play well and they get themselves into and they stay in this playoff contention, they're not going to be in the playoff. I don't foresee him just getting thrown in there. But I'm going to jump over to another call. I haven't talked to this guy in a while. But Amin, the Dream, is on the show, and I am hoping that he's here because all I see is his little blue dot in the middle.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. How you doing, my man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah.
I think you got mad. I think you got mad at me because you realized that Joe Montana was better than.
No. I don't know why we're starting this conversation. The stats don't lie. Brady's stats are just through the roof. Why are we starting this conversation? Okay, we already know the last.
I know. I should.
Had the conversation.
I know. I should know better.
The last time it wasn't pretty. Okay, the last we had this conversation was not fun. Speaking of another New England Patriots quarterback and Mac Jones, I don't know if my eyes were deceiving me, but I heard you say on Twitter, like I've seen you type and comment so many times that Mac Jones should have been the pick at number 3. Is my eyes deceiving me, or is that true?
The pick, regardless of where they were taking him, should have been Mac Jones. Mac Jones was the best quarterback in the draft. He's going to be the best quarterback, I believe, when all said and done out of this draft. Taking him at 3 you didn't need to take him at 3. I think you might have had to get to 7 because I think might have had to get ahead of Carolina, because if the 49ers hadn't jumped up to 3, I think Carolina might have been an option for him there. I think they might have wanted to take Jones at that spot, and the only reason that that they did what they did was because they might have felt like Jones was going to be the 49ers pick there instead of Lance. But there's a lot of ways, because you can even with what I just said there, right? Having to get ahead of Carolina. Well, if Trey Lance was really worth being that high of a draft pick, why would Carolina not have wanted to try to take him there as well? You know what I'm saying? Or hold off on that, or hold off on making that trade for Sam Darnold a little bit longer. I don't know. There's a lot of variables that go into it, but I just feel like Jones is going to be the best quarterback when it's all said and done.
So now the way I look at it is, now obviously I've heard, not even just you, but I've heard like a bunch of people say Mac Jones should have been the pick at number 3. And I remember pre-draft, majority of the Niner fan base was like, if the Niners take Mac Jones at 3, we're gonna riot. Like nobody wants Mac Jones in the Niners uniform, especially at number 3. Before the draft, I remember pretty much nobody, including myself, was like, why draft Mac Jones when there's better options?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, coming into the draft, before the draft process, obviously, pre-draft, I feel like Mac Jones is the most pro-ready quarterback coming into the draft. But where the Niners are sitting at, let's say they sat at 12 and the Niners drafted Mac Jones, it's understandable. But since they traded up to number 3 and they drafted Trey Lance, or whoever they drafted, let's say they drafted Fields or someone like that, makes sense to me. So I'm not like mad at it, because it makes sense to me, because they're trying to base, he has a high upside, where Mac Jones has the upside of Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins. He doesn't have that high of an upside. Or my thing is,
I disagree with that, though. I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm just gonna say I disagree with the upside of Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think that Mac Jones is already at Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, but let's say the Niners did take Mac Jones at 3, right?
Yeah.
There was more athletically better players. There was guys that have higher upsides like Fields and Lance. And with Mac Jones obviously is a quarterback that you can win games with, like he is doing in New England. But do you think ever in his career that Mac Jones has the potential to be a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the NFL? In my opinion, I don't think so. Where I think Lance and Fields have potential to be top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL in the upcoming future.
I think he does. I think we're looking at a guy who is 10 games. I think they're 6-4, right? Yeah. So they're 10 games into it. He's playing at a top 10 quarterback level, I think, in a lot of ways right now. Maybe just outside of that range, but I think he's like maybe 15 or something like that, or 16 in QBR from ESPN, whatever that is, because that number a lot of times also reflects whether the team's winning or not necessarily how well the quarterback's playing. At least what it seems like to me when I look at those numbers. But as far as Jones, I would not rather have been able to get him at 12 and not moved up to 3. If you go back and if you look at all the stuff that I wrote leading up to the draft, overall on the Sports Illustrated site, I was against trading up for Trey Lance. I was against trading up for Zach Wilson. I would have really been against. I wasn't really excited about even trading up for Mac Jones. It's just that's what the 49ers decided to do. So if I was running it, I would have probably stayed at 12 and just let them fall to me, or taken the quarterback that fell, because one of those guys was going to come to me, one of those top guys. And I think you could win with any of them. I think that Mac Jones is the best when it comes to what they do in the NFL. And I think the issue with Trey Lance is going to be, in order for him to become what everybody expects him to become, he's going to have to do things that he's never shown that he can do.
Well, I mean, obviously, like we already talked about how the Niners traded after number 3, but like the Niners drafted Trey Lance, they could have taken Fields in that situation, because obviously, like I said, Lance and Fields both have the high upside. Where my thing with Lance is that Lance, he's in a good situation. Where you look at like Wilson and Lawrence, those guys are struggling. Obviously, Wilson, he's out. He was out for a couple of weeks, and then Trevor Lawrence, pretty much every play you see him running for his life, not trying to get sacked or not trying to throw an interception, running for his life pretty much every play because he's in a bad situation. Now, the Mac Jones, obviously, he landed in a perfect situation because he went to New England. But let's say Mac Jones went to the Jets, or let's say Mac Jones went to Jacksonville or a bad team. Like we've seen Sam Darnold, right? Sam Darnold obviously
Mhm.
he's in Carolina, but he went to the Jets. And when he went to the Jets in 2018, the Jets weren't a good team. He was struggling with the Jets. He's a non-mobile athletic quarterback. And you look at a lot of non-mobile athletic quarterbacks in the league, they do pretty good their first year. Now I'm not saying that they win games, obviously because the team situation around their team, but most at least recently, like Kyler Murray his first year, he looked pretty good. Obviously, the record won't show you that, but his stats look pretty good. And I mean, even with like guys like Deshaun Watson, their first years, like those guys are mobile quarterbacks and they look good. Their numbers look good, and the stats look good his first year. Where if you look at guys like, let's say, like I said, like Sam Darnold, his first year was horrible. Now, obviously, you could say he played for the Jets, but I feel like we see Mac Jones doing so well right now because obviously of the situation that he landed in. Where let's say he landed in another situation, he would probably be struggling. Now, like let's say, like I said, like the Jets or like Jacksonville, he would probably be struggling. Where with Lance, let's say Lance got thrown in there. I'm not saying Lance would ball out or do anything like that, but Lance would do a little bit better because he is a mobile quarterback, and we've seen mobile quarterbacks in the past do better even if their team situation isn't that good. Where like even Josh Rosen, the Kyler Murray situation, like Josh Rosen his first year non-mobile quarterback in Arizona, his stats were horrible. Kyler Murray came in Arizona, obviously they weren't winning games. Same thing with Josh Rosen, but his stats look good.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna go back to, or what I'm gonna say is that that I don't think that New England is as good with Trey Lance at quarterback as they are with Mac Jones. Oh, I lost him. Maybe I must have got him mad at me. But I don't think that New England has the record they do if Trey Lance is the starting quarterback. Uh, Trey Lance has a lot of tools. He has the wheels as far as his legs. He has an arm that can throw the ball down the field. He's got the head, and that he's a really smart person. So that's part of what's allowed him to learn the 49ers offense as quickly as he has. What Trey Lance misses is the ability to be accurate with the football consistently. And there you go. And he also lacks the ability to get the ball out on time on a consistent basis. Those are my two issues with him, and that those are both things that Mac Jones excelled at, and I think that's why they're such different quarterbacks. Did
I'm
you catch that?
Yeah, I caught some of that, but like I mean, we haven't seen Lance play, so like obviously we've seen him in college, but like we can't necessarily make that assumption just based off one start, can we? Like we've seen Mac
Okay.
Jones consistently play, and we've seen him start this whole season. If Lance gets the whole season to start, and you want to make that, if you want to say that, fine. But Lance hasn't just based off one game. You can't necessarily make that full assumption. Lance. Obviously, he might not be as good as Mac Jones. Obviously, we already knew Mac Jones coming into the draft. He was the most pro-ready quarterback. He was going to be the best quarterback based on what situation he was coming into this year, especially with the start when he went to New England. We knew that he was the most pro-ready quarterback over Lance, over Fields, over all those guys. But if you look at Lance's upside, Lance has a higher upside, and you understand why the Niners took him at number 3. And like I said before, like Lance, we've only played one game, so to make that say like, oh, Mac Jones should have been the pick at number 3 just because we've seen him play 6 games. What if Lance plays next year? Let's say he sits on the bench at Toledo, and let's say Lance plays, and he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the future. In 3 years down the road, like who knows, right? But I'm just saying, Mac Jones. Just my whole thing is like I've heard, not even just you, like I've heard so many people say Mac Jones should have been the pick at number 3 when I'm like, Lance hasn't even played. Lance only has one start, so like until Lance gets enough and Lance is like the full-time starter, or he gets to play games consistently and becomes a full-time starter, then I'm not going to make that assumption and be like, Mac Jones should have been the pick at number 3.
And that's fine. And my takes on Trey Lance specifically aren't based just on what I saw in college. They're based off of what I saw in college and what I've seen of him in Santa Clara. I've seen a lot of him in practice. Saw a lot of him in practice in the preseason. During training camp, I saw a lot of him in practice. Since then, I saw him in the games during the preseason and so on and so forth. And he's just not at Mac Jones level. Mac Jones was better even in the preseason. He just was. He was putting up big numbers in all of the preseason games, right? And the response that those numbers got when he was doing that in weeks 1, 2, and 3 of the preseason was that's preseason. He's not doing it against anybody. But Mac Jones has come on and he's done the same thing in the regular season that he did in the preseason. And Trey Lance, again, Trey Lance is a guy who definitely has a lot of upside. There's definitely a lot of upside there. It's a matter, and are you going to be able to develop him and turn him into something that he hasn't been, or something that he hasn't shown that he can really do? That's the question. He hasn't shown that he can run the 49ers offense. That's why he's not the starter. The 49ers gave him a chance to defeat Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason. They gave him a chance to run early on in the preseason against leading up to the Kansas City game. They gave him a chance to take the job. He didn't do it. They gave him a chance to run with the ones during practice in Los Angeles against the Chargers, and in that game he didn't do it. And that's why you're hearing, there was the article from Mike Silver last week after the Cardinals game, and in that he talked about there was a lack of, or a loss of what was it? Confidence from Trey Lance, right? As the preseason went on, or as training camp went on. And I don't know if it was a loss of confidence from Trey Lance as much as it was a loss of confidence in where Trey Lance was. I think the 49ers early in camp felt like this is a great situation. He knows the offense. He's going to continue to build on it. And he was showing that early on. And then as camp got tougher and they put more and more on him, he showed that he wasn't taking steps. He was still doing the same things. What's he going to become? Maybe he's going to become better than Mac Jones, but we'll see. We'll see. Yep. I had Jones at 1. I had Lance at 2, Fields at 3. I would still stand by those moving forward. I look at what Justin Fields has done, and I keep hearing people talk about how well he's playing. I look at his charts and graphs and watch what he's doing, and I'm not seeing it quite yet. But maybe I just maybe I'm the one that's wrong, and it's all going to prove out at some point. But right now, I feel pretty comfortable with the way that I ranked them.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, the future, we don't know. We can't predict the future. But Mac Jones, I feel like majority of Mac Jones, I'm not denying him as a quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I feel like we already knew Mac Jones was the most pro-ready quarterback coming into the draft over all the guys, Lawrence, Wilson. But I feel like Mac Jones is having success because of the situation that he's in.
Okay. No, and I hear you. I'm not laughing at you when I say I'm laughing, but I chuckle when I hear people say, we know that Mac Jones was the most pro-ready quarterback. I can't tell you how many times I read on 49ers Twitter and 49ers articles from other folks, not talking about the guys that follow the team on a regular basis, but guys that are pretty well known in the 49ers blogosphere, I guess I'd call it, that wasn't the case, and that Mac Jones would be lucky to be a first-round draft pick. That I don't understand the discussion was, I don't know why everybody's talking about Mac Jones. He only made a couple of good throws at the Senior Bowl. He had such a bad Senior Bowl. He didn't even want to play in the game, so he left early. Yada 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 yada. So when it comes from when you say that Mac Jones was the most pro-ready quarterback, if you're hearing that from a lot of people around that follow the 49ers and write about the 49ers outside of the 49ers beat writers, you need to go back and watch and read what they were writing and saying back in March and February, because that wasn't the case. They did not like Mac Jones. It wasn't until late in the game, and after they got the 49ers trade up to 3, they were still not liking Mac Jones. But then what they were able to do was couch it with the fact that, I don't mind Mac Jones, but I definitely don't want him now that we're at 3. No, you didn't want him even at 15 or at 12, wherever the 49ers were. You didn't believe that he was even worth that. And if you go back and you read what they've said, it's all out there. It should be, and that's not saying that those are bad people, whatever, but their takes have definitely changed. And it's just the the what do you want to call it? The trying to change history and what you said is something that frustrates me when I hear this conversation brought up, and it's not with you. I mean, I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah, I already said before, like Mac Jones was definitely the most pro-ready quarterback coming into the draft. I've said it like so many times already right now on the show, but
No, you have. No, you have.
yeah,
And
but
what
like
I'm
would I
talking about
take
other people where
yeah,
it's
but
coming
like
from.
would I take Mac Jones at number 3 when I could get better options like Trey Lance, like Justin Fields? No. Now obviously we haven't seen it from Lance because he hasn't played, but Lance, if he develops and let's say he turns into the quarterback that we expect him to turn into, I definitely do think he has the potential to do that. Now, like I said before, like Mac Jones, I don't think he could be a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the league. Where I feel like the main reason why I feel like they drafted Lance is because he has that upside. He has that eye upside. Where Mac Jones, he necessarily doesn't have a huge upside.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see. I get the upside argument to an extent. I I'm not a big floor ceiling kind of guy. I've seen too many people where they say this guy's got a high ceiling and a low floor, or a high floor, low ceiling, whatever, and that stuff never plays out. It's just it's a way that the upside thing is a way for people to downgrade another player over who they believe it's going to be, and that's okay. I do think that there's a lot of potential out of all these guys. I think that Mac Jones' potential hasn't even been all fully tapped into yet. I think he still has room to grow. I think that Trey Lance obviously has room to grow. Either way, I think the 49ers came out with, outside of Mac Jones, probably what's going to be the best rookie quarterback in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll leave it at that.
This was a long talk about Mac Jones and Trey Lance.
Yeah, no, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to play out in front of us, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna see it play out over the next couple of years, and it'll be fun to see how this all plays out, because it would be fun to watch New England have a really good run through the playoffs, and it'd be great to see Bill Belichick have to go up against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl this year. That'd be fun.
That would be interesting. That would definitely have huge storylines.
Yeah, for sure.
But only time will tell. Only time will tell. But still, before I hop off here, Brady over Montana any day of the week. Okay?
All right. I'll let you get that one
That's
off.
not a debate. Okay, that's not a debate. Brady over Montana.
Well, it's a long debate, but I got Waruna on the line, and he wants to talk, and I'm going to jump over to him when we're done. But
Appreciate you taking my call.
I just wish that Joe Montana could play under the rules that Tom Brady's played under, because I think the numbers would be a lot different. That's the only thing.
Well, he did it, sadly. So
No, he didn't. So, all right, man. Well, I really appreciate you calling in. I haven't talked to you in so long, and so it was fun to find. I've seen you pop in here and then pop off before I got to you. So I'm glad I was able to get you on the line.
I'm glad I could talk to you. It's been a while. So.
Yep, definitely. All right, you have a good night.
You too.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye. That is the great Amin, the Dream. He's great kid. Does some great stuff. Always has strong takes. Love chatting with him, and hope he knows I wasn't yelling at him when I was going off on my Mac Jones rant there for a minute. That was more at other people and the whole pro ready thing. But anyway, got about 15 more minutes, and I'm going to see about wrapping this up with the great Waruna. How are you doing, my man?
Hi, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm good. What's
I'm
going
doing
on?
great. I was just listening to the argument about Mac Jones versus Trey Lance. I think part of the reason, Jack, what it became or turned out that day is, I would say, outside of football factors. For example, now there was a reason about bringing up Mac Jones DUI. Some of the comments some of his actions as a teenager or youngster. So they were taken, I would say, out of the context, because most of the time, the criticism that was thrown towards Mac Jones was not about his football talents. It was like, okay, there was a huge, making fun of at his name, McCorkle Jones. That was it,
Hmm.
one thing. Then there was his DUIs and other stuff. But
Hmm.
part of the reason for that is maybe the social and political environment that we live in. Because if we really digest into that or check into that, that's part of the reason. The other
Hmm.
reason is, I think, the factor of that Deshaun Watson was available at a time, and then you have Patrick Mahomes and guys like Russell Wilson already in the NFC West, along with Kyler Murray. When you see that type of quarterbacks, it's kind of you in a hesitation to again go for a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, because Mac Jones, I believe he should be a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not sure right now whether he's better than Garoppolo or not. That's a very debatable argument. Maybe it's unfair for Garoppolo as well. But having said that, I believe that was part of the reason. It was like, for example, I mean, let's say even in political scenarios, right? Sometimes you vote for one candidate not because that you like all the principles and whatever that person bringing to the table, just the fact that you hate the other person. So I think that was part of the reason why 49er community turned against Mac Jones. uh, if it was not, maybe I think 49er community would have liked Mac Jones, but I can't say for sure. But uh, and again, having said that, I like the fact that Mac Jones did not come to 49ers, because even at the beginning he did not have a fair chance here, because the fans were like, okay, he has 2 DUI, he did that and whatnot. Because as teenagers, 21 years old, we all have done sometimes much worse things than that. People tend to forget that these are just kids out of college, right? They
Yeah.
don't try to give these guys a chance. Because my argument for that was, if we are to judge these players this in this way, this manner, this harshly, if there was social media back probably like 20, 30 years back, we would not have never heard about guy called Brett Favre. Brett Favre would have never
Hmm.
made it to the NFL if social media existed in early 90s. There might be
Yes. That.
some other players
Yeah.
as well.
That's well. Let me ask you this, because you mentioned this. You mentioned some of the political and stuff like that, right?
Yes, yes.
With Mac Jones and what have you. Um, what I found interesting about that, or what made Mac Jones different from, let's say, Nick Bosa. Because if you remember during the draft and the run up to the draft, there was a lot of stuff that came out about Nick Bosa that wasn't in a good light. We saw it again this offseason come up with his girlfriend from the political standpoint. But even though that stuff was out there, a lot of people said they kind of got angry about it, but they swept it under the rug really fast. Why did they sweep it under the rug with Nick Bosa, but it was a big issue that they kept coming back to when it pertains to Mac Jones? Why do you think that's the case?
The case is Nick Bosa is already here. He won the Rocky of the
Okay, but
Defensive
but
Rookie of the Year.
yeah, but Nick, I'm talking about Nick Bosa. The stuff that I'm talking about with Nick Bosa originally happened prior to the draft.
Prior to the draft, yeah, I think, Jack, I'm not the best person to answer that, because when that time I wasn't following. But
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
so not the best person to answer that part
that's
of the question.
that's fine.
But I believe maybe not the right answer. If you watch the Colin Kaepernick documentary and everything, there is still a bitterness about how Colin Kaepernick was outed by the NFL, by the league, the way
Mhm.
things happened. So that elements also played into that, right? Because uh, just trying to stating a factor, not making any conspiracy theories or anything. So if
Mhm.
anyone is listening, please do understand that.
That's fine.
So drafting another white quarterback on top of the on top of that, the fact that in the same mold of Jimmy Garoppolo would not have been received well by the 49er fans, because sometimes you don't publicly open come out and say we don't like Mac Jones or Nick Bosa due to this reason, but it's in subconsciously you are coming out with a different argument, but there is some factors contributing to that. So I think that might have been part of the reason as well why Mac Jones was not received. There is the sequence of events happened in San Francisco, because uh, everything comes together. So eventually, sometimes Mac Jones is not even part of the discussion what happened years earlier, but still the after effects of that, it's like snowball effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you are not even remotely related to what's everything is happening. You are not responsible, but you get swept. I mean, you get hit by that snowball because unfortunately you are at the wrong place, wrong time. So I think that did play a reason for Mac Jones being rejected by 49er fan base.
Okay. I think a lot of it has to do, and I think that Harold over in the comments section, I think hit it on the head. Mac Jones was a nobody. That was the difference. Bosa was a well-known name. I think what it was, and the difference with Jones and Bosa, just to kind of hit on that and put a bow on it, was that Nick Bosa, everybody knows from Joey Bosa, and Nick Bosa had a really good career in college and was widely regarded as a top 1, 2, 3 player in the draft, whereas Mac Jones was more of a riser that a lot of people didn't know anything about until 2020. A little bit about the end of 2019, but really didn't know about him until 2020, and so nobody knew him. And then with Mac Jones, and you see the picture where he's, the bad picture where he's, fat Mac, and all those kind of things, and I think that all kinds of plays into it. That's just me. I think that social media, 49er social media, got swept up in a lot of things that didn't have to do with football, and it wasn't going to matter. And they got their way in a way. They didn't. Everybody was clamoring for Justin Fields, but they got what they wanted. I That whole thing was frustrating to me. I don't mind who the quarterback was. I just got tired of the stuff that I was being called because of the fact that I liked Mac Jones. When it comes to the things that outside of football, it's an interesting time that we live in.
Yes, the thing is, I think some of this, even I see comments like, I'm not trying to talk politics, but I'm just trying to state the facts that has happened, because we can ignore that it's not part of the reason, because every everything is
Yeah.
politics except for politics. So that's the truth you need to understand.
You're right, and even now, and I know trying to stick to football, get out of politics, whatever. Even now, when I talk about Mac Jones, or there's a comment about Mac Jones, or there's a tweet about Mac Jones, or whatever, I get three at least. Let's say I get 10 responses to that. There's at least three that are going to be talking about a DUI that he had as a 19-year-old
Yes,
kid, and
yes,
my only take on that is, you're 19 years old, you make mistakes. Did you learn from it? Are you the same guy that you were? I'd ask anybody. Are you the same guy
yes,
now at 25 that you were when you were, or 23 that you were when you're 18 or 19? If you are, that's a problem,
yes,
right?
yes. That's true. Because for that, the best answer would be for that, Jack, is for anyone that who is throwing that comment out there about DUI, I would ask them to go read Brett Favre's autobiography. Then they will understand. Brett Favre was really lucky that he lived on that day, because we have a Hall of Famer now. Otherwise,
Yeah,
he wouldn't have been drafted by any team.
yeah. No, you're right. It's definitely changed the game. Can you imagine what it would have been like? It's funny because you hear like Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019. He could have a game where he goes off and he throws the 49ers to victory, right? But the
Yes.
first tweet was Garoppolo didn't really play all that well. The defense carried him to victory, and he only had to make a couple of plays here and there. Or, like I keep seeing now, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't all that great. He's only getting the numbers because of all the yak that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are giving him, or what have you. Can you imagine what it would have been like when you were around following the 49ers back then, but like when Joe Montana was the quarterback of the 49ers in 1981, and if you go back and look, I mean, the NFL was a different game then in terms of the interceptions, and because it was so much more physical. But in the biggest game that Joe Montana played in up until his Super Bowl, he threw 3 interceptions against the Dallas Cowboys. I know he won the game. He made the play to win it, but he also threw 3 picks. Can you imagine what the discussion would have been on 49ers Twitter when he had thrown that 3rd pick and the 49ers were losing 27-21, and he'd only in the 49ers, before he threw the game winner? I mean, that would have been hilarious.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I mean, or go back and Steve Young, like during the Steve Young days, and from like 87, 88, he didn't really play he played in 89. I don't know about 89. Played a little bit in 89, I think. But if 49ers Twitter had been around in 1991 when Steve Young first took over for Joe Montana, holy moly, that poor guy would have been roasted up and down, because he wasn't very good at the beginning until he got injured, and then when he got injured and he came back from being injured, he really took off at that point. That's when he became the Steve Young that everybody knows, and really the winning Steve Young and making the big plays and everything else.
Yes, that's the thing, because part of the reason I believe, even I have that responsibility. When we use social media, we never think about whether we are going to say something we can take back, because we can't take the things that we can say out in the public. So we have to be mindful about whatever we put out there, because after you say something, just apologizing or saying, okay, I wasn't in the right frame of mind at that time, doesn't change anything. So you have to be really careful about it. But I think that's part of the reason. I think there is when I'm saying all this, I am myself included as well, because I'm doing the same things as well. But it says love, like the opinions are like, how do I say this, like your ear ends, everyone has one.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Hey, did you, really quick, talking about being careful with what you put out? Did you see the picture last night of Shanahan's family? That was
Yeah,
put.
I did not
that made,
like it. I did not personally like it, because I got the fun part of it, but I
I know.
was kind of like whether we went too far.
No, that's true, because you did have a couple of the kids on there, but yeah, that
Yes,
I definitely. Hey, the 49ers still got to play those guys again, so hopefully that's not.
yes,
It's not.
yes,
Hopefully it did make it around through to Los Angeles, to the Rams.
yes, yes, yes.
But
It should be a good run of next 6 or 7 games. Should be a interesting one.
okay, well, real quick before I let you go, what is your prediction? Because you normally get this stuff right. I don't know what your record's been lately. Maybe it's fallen off a
Now
little
it's
bit.
6-3. I got last 3 games wrong. 6-3. Now
Oh,
I'm
oh,
done.
okay. So
I'm
we're
a
on the
bust. I'm a
you're on,
bust.
you're on the schneid then. You gotta. What is your
Yes.
what is your thoughts on 49ers Jaguars?
Should be a win, provided that 49ers play that basic complementary football. What we saw last night.
Uh huh.
Play to your strength, don't make any mistakes, and don't try to be too smart. That's it. Don't try to be too smart.
Right. Right. Yeah.
If it
No.
is ugly, it's fine.
Uh huh. Yeah. I don't care if it's an ugly win or not. I just want to see a win. I just
Yes.
want to. Uh huh.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm with you there 100%. Those grind them out kind of games are always fun to me anyway. I love running the football.
Yes.
If the 49ers run the ball 30 times a game, I'm good with that. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. If they can win, you look at their schedule ahead, and I mean, if they right the ship, if their ship has been righted and they start to play at the level they're capable of playing, there's a really good chance they could win the next 5 games.
We can at least win 6 games out of 7.
I mean, I look at it, if they're playing at the level they played last night, they can beat Jacksonville. They can beat Minnesota. They can beat Seattle. They could probably beat the Bengals, the Falcons, and then you're looking at a Thursday night game against Tennessee, which I think is on a different level. But
Yes.
the 49ers have the best team in the NFC right now is Green Bay, and the 49ers
Yeah.
had them. The 49ers were ahead of them with 37
Yes.
seconds to go. So
I think we have a real chance. We have a real
Yeah.
chance to get
We'll
it
see.
back.
We'll see what
Yes,
happens,
we'll
right?
see. Yes.
All right, man.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time to call in. I got a penguin that called in now. I got to talk to the penguin. Can you believe that?
Okay.
So,
I think he called into Jesse's show before.
oh, did he really? See, I
Yes.
like these guys. I got a penguin. There was a spider during the run up to the draft. I had all kinds of animals following me that were a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump over
Okay.
and take his call real quick, and then
Okay. Have a good
wrap
night.
it up for the night. Well, you have a good night, Waruna.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye. All right, how you doing, penguin? You there? Uh-oh.
Oh, I was muted. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, first time calling. Yeah, a couple times I've called in on Jesse's show. I'm usually like getting off work at 5:30, 6:30, depending. So sometimes I can come on here, but I figured
Okay.
I would at least come on your show at least once because I always give you a hard time and I always feel bad. But you're right 99% of the time. So
I don't
it's
mi-
probably more than 99, but it's Twitter, so.
Hey, that's it. I know, right? I don't mind that. I like talking to you. It's hilarious because like I was just telling Maruna, and I got a penguin that follows me. I had a spider. I got all kinds of these crazy animals that follow me, and I like the
Yeah.
jackass penguin. It's a kind of a cool name. It's kind of
It
funny.
is. Well, it's kind of a funny Twitter handle, and obviously African penguins are awesome. So I mean, I just had to do it. But no,
Yeah.
I honestly didn't even have that much to say other than like, no, it was a good win and everything. And I literally just hopped on, so I don't know everything you guys have been talking about, but it's kind of weird though. When the whole season, it's just like it's like a different Kyle Shanahan every game. It's just like I don't know. It's an odd locker room. It's an odd, like they were clearly ready to play, and it's like they were completely control. Like how do they lose to a backup Arizona team? I just think these are just weird questions that need to be answered. That I don't know. It makes me a little nervous going to Jacksonville. Like that, they should blow that team out. You'd think. So I don't. I have no idea.
I'm with you on that. You're right when you say that it's like a different Kyle Shanahan every week because it kind of is. We haven't seen them be consistent week in and week out with what their attack is. I mean, I can watch their film and I can see plays here and there from one game to the next that are similar, but the consistency with their execution and some of the little things that they do isn't there on a week to week basis. And for example, the running game, right? That the fact that they just completely went away from the running game against Arizona, as quickly as they did. Just it's and then they come after that and they come out and run 40 times on last night. So it's
Wilson. Were they just really waiting for him? I guess so. I mean, it's just really weird.
It is weird, but it's kind of cool in the fact that I'm really glad that they have Jeff Wilson back now because now they've got Mitchell and Wilson give you a really strong duo.
Yeah.
Nothing against JaMychal Hasty. He has his role as kind of a scat back kind of guy, but he's not somebody you're going to see like what they did with Jeff Wilson. They used Jeff Wilson as a fullback a lot last night, or it really is like an H-back type of role, really in the Juszczyk role quite a bit. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, it feels like that's what they wanted Sermon to do, and I don't know when they're even really going to work him in, but yeah, I mean, I think that was the thing that I was like telling Jesse, I think like last week, where it was like, if they use Mitchell the way they're doing it, he's going to get hurt. He's going to be Mostert, and I think this is probably the week. And I think the writing's kind of on the wall with the cornerbacks, right? With the Lenore and Thomas probably going to get some run, but I think this is definitely the week to do it if you're going to start, mixing in Sermon because I like the way that it functions with all these guys, but it's just been odd because it's like every time I looked at like Mitchell and he, as great as he's been, it's like he's for sure going to get hurt if they use him like they did Mostert. I mean, it's going to happen. So, and obviously he's, it's just, I don't like that usage so much. I like the way it was when it was like, when they were splitting it, that, Mostert and, oh geez, who was it? Who was it that was pretty much like in a timeshare with him when the year they went to the Super Bowl?
It had been Tevin Coleman.
Yes. And but there was a third one. But yeah,
Matt Breida was there as well.
Oh, that's right. See, that's who they lost. And so I'm just like, man, I just feel like Sermon gives even, something different than even Wilson brings. I don't know. It's been weird how I guess he's just not practicing well. I don't really know. It's kind of odd, but it does seem like that whole rookie pressure thing has kind of mounted. And I think that we're probably going to see more of them because why not at this point? I mean, the Drake Kirkpatrick thing, I mean, I think that's a step in the right direction. And I don't know. The team it's completely different today. Like, it's just odd. It's a weird feeling because I'm like, I guess we're all in again, right? And it's like, I can't be pessimistic anymore because it's like, we're all out of jokes, right? It just doesn't. Now it's just like, whatever this is, it can definitely work because they just beat the crap out of one of the best teams in the NFL. So.
Right. No, I know it does. It kind of ruins the jokes there quite a bit. But I'm with you on the whole deal, like with the cornerbacks. That whole deal with Drake Kirkpatrick, it was just a weird. Like, how did they get to Drake Kirkpatrick over Deommodore Lenoir? How did Lenoir go from being your starting cornerback weeks 1 and 2 to behind a guy that wasn't even on your team at the end of the training camp?
No, and I'll give Josh Norman some credit. He has made some plays, like he does, but he's just like, you can, like last night. Remember, like when he jumped for that ball, it was out of bounds. It was like, boy, he's just like, dude, you could have. That was like an easy interception if he just like waited just a little bit. I'm not an easy interception, but it's just stuff like that. And it's just like he's just old. He's just not at that point. Like, he's an over the hill cornerback, and as good as he is, sometimes it's like, Thomas and Lenoir could definitely give them something. I mean, is Thomas really that bad? I think that's really the concern, is Ambry Thomas more than Lenoir, but I don't know. Got to see him. I mean, hopefully against the Jaguars. I don't know. Same thing with Sermon. I would think this is the week. So
yeah,
no idea.
Well, and that's the thing, I like the fact that we saw so much of the run, but I really didn't like Elijah Mitchell getting 27 carries. When he's gotten that heavier workload, he tends to he shows the wear and tear shortly thereafter. And this week it's a broken finger. A couple of weeks ago, I think it was a rib, and he had a shoulder, and he's dealing with different things. So, once you get him to 15, get him to 18, that range right there, and then let Trey Sermon take some of the pounding. I don't think the drop off to Trey Sermon is going to be some like going off of a cliff.
I don't know. Like when I was watching Sermon early in the season, I thought he looked good. I thought he's not explosive at all. He's the opposite of explosive, whatever that word is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but he gets it's like he's just like a positive yardage guy. Like he's not going to wow you, but I mean some of those runs he had, I mean he gets 5-6, he gets chunks of yards, not high speed, but I mean he can. I don't know. It just scares me with Mitchell. It just scares me. It just seems like, what are they doing to this kid? Like they're really going to get him, destroyed out there. And yeah, it's just been kind of a lingering thing with ribs one week. I know he had the ankle one week. It's just like something else every week, and it just is. I think it's just kind of scaring me a little bit. Like, are we going to do the same thing, like basically to Mostert? It's like I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. That definitely is something to keep an eye on. I don't think that he's carrying the ball more than Mostert really ever did. Mostert really wasn't didn't get much over 15 carries a game, so he's carrying the ball even more than that. He's taking more of a pounding because he's running more up in the middle of the defense. So definitely something to keep an eye on though with Mitchell.
Yeah, I think he would just score most of the time, so he didn't have to carry it that many times. But
yeah, he was just so fast.
He had, I know Mitchell had one run last night. It was coming down the sideline, and he's just like, boy, he looked just as fast as Mostert. It kind of like made me think like, oh, geez, like he really is that fast. And but yeah, it's just they got to protect him a little bit. I think it's definitely more than past due for Trey Sermon, but And I'm going to
Yeah.
stop with the Lance, right? I mean, obviously, it's just. And I was telling. This is what I was going to tell you because I told Jesse. I was like, I I think the missing thing here is nobody really knows what Kyle Shanahan wanted in the draft. I really don't know anymore. I don't think anybody really does. And I was telling him I think there's a good chance that he really loves Trey Lance. He just doesn't want to get him hurt yet. He doesn't want to get him exposed yet. He just doesn't. The plan wasn't to just not yet. But it was just like, man, it's an expensive plan.
No, yeah. Hey, I'm really happy to hear you say that because I agree with you. I think that they don't make that trade up to 3 if that wasn't the pick that they were going to go with. I think that's who they were seen all along.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe at one point it was all on Mac Jones, right? But then they make the trade up at the end of March, and I think from that point on they were locked in on Trey Lance as being the guy, whether they told anybody outside their building or not.
Yeah.
And I think he really does like him. And here's the thing to think about with Lance, and the reason, and the talk had been the reason that everybody was focused on him going to Atlanta, or why that was the talk, was because their quarterback is getting old. But Matt Ryan is still a good quarterback. They weren't him going to Atlanta wasn't about him replacing Matt Ryan now. It would have been about him replacing Matt Ryan in a year or two.
Yeah.
Because this is a young guy who had, whatever, if you want to say play a lot, whatever, but he's a younger guy. And he definitely has some things that he needs to work on and develop that some of the other guys didn't. And I think the 49ers plan was that we have a quarterback that we feel comfortable with, and we're going to go ahead and stick with him, especially since they couldn't get any of the other guys through free agency. And we're going to go ahead and stick with him. And then in 2022 or 2023, it's going to be Trey time. And we'll be able to reset our clock at that point because they have some big number of contracts coming up at that time. I don't know. I understand people wanting to see Lance play. I just think that they wouldn't get what they really think that they want. You know what I mean?
I think that Arizona game really excited everybody, and because it did, right? And there was so many things. I mean, if he punches it in there, that one where he got stopped, it's like, geez.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the talk of the NFL at that point, and that's fine. But it's at the same time, it's like, and I told myself, I think it was right before the season started, I was like, it's not the worst thing in the world if Jimmy Garoppolo plays well. And that's it's hard for you to wrap your head around it because obviously there's two camps, right? There doesn't have to be two camps. If Jimmy Garoppolo is playing well, then you have a good problem. Then you have time to figure it out. It's who cares if he's successful. It's just that kind of like impulsiveness, right? You want to see him play. It's like, what, he's not going to get that. It doesn't matter. I realize every situation is different. Like it just is. Sitting on the bench, it could be great. Justin Fields has looked great. He's also looked terrible. I mean, who knows what sitting or playing is going to do to a guy like Justin Fields, even, right? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. I mean, Mac Jones, maybe he's better if he watched, too. Who knows? Like, there's no way to know what any of these quarterbacks are going to look like. It's just, I think the narrative of how everything's gone this year, like the Mac Jones looking great and Trey, looking as raw as he did, and Jimmy kind of doing this. It's a weird place to be for fans, and like I always got to tell myself, like, it's okay if Jimmy Garoppolo wins a few games, it's fine. I mean, it's an odd thing to say that, but it's you understand what I'm saying though. It's like mentally, it's hard to be on two sides, or not two sides of it, like kind of root for both of them. It's like, well, how are you supposed to do that? You want your guy to play, and it's this Shanahan has done this stuff. Okay, I mean, it's been a rough few years as far as the quarterback situation, and it's just not, I wouldn't say it's all Shanahan's fault, but I'm saying like it's definitely circumstances I think has just made everybody jumpy. Hey, I'm right there with everyone else, but I just can't I'm not convinced that he doesn't love Lance. Like there's just no way. There's just so many things that Lance does that why wouldn't Shanahan's like screaming for, I just don't think he's just not going to happen yet. And that's probably a good thing, is the mature approach, right? I guess I'm
Yeah.
being mature now because I guess that's what I have to do this second half of the season. So
There you go. See, the Penguin has matured, ladies and gentlemen.
don't worry. When they lose the Jaguars, I'll go back to.
Maybe go back the other direction.
I'll
Okay.
go back. Yeah, exactly. But,
Awesome. Hey.
All right. Well, yeah.
I appreciate you calling in, though. It was great to finally get a chance to hear you and talk to you and put a voice to the name.
Yeah, I think last Thursday or Friday, I think you had it, and I was going to call in, but now I was at work. So, yeah, it was. That's what I do at work. I pretty much follow what nonsense is going on 49ers Twitter. But yeah, no, I'll definitely do it when I can. It's nice meeting you too, and
yeah, for sure.
I always love your takes. That's why I follow you. I know you're right. I know it's a hard pill to swallow half the time, especially when it comes to the gun stuff. But hey, I think at the end of the day, you want the same thing. I think you want Trey Lance to be as good as he could possibly be, and I think I just want Shanahan to be as good as he could possibly be. When I looked last night, I'm just like, what's going on, guys? Just get this together. There's no reason to come on, figure this out. It's
absolutely. I mean, definitely. I definitely want to see Trey Lance. When it's Trey time, I want to see him be successful. I want to see the 49ers be successful. It's more fun to cover a team that's winning and playing good football than it is a team that's playing as poorly as they did, say, against Arizona. That wasn't a lot of fun. But to see, it'd be exciting to be able to have them win some games.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well,
all right.
I'll let you go and keep it up, man. I always like your takes. Like I said, I'm a big fan as much as you don't think I was a few minutes ago.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I appreciate you calling in, and yeah, that's definitely keep me on my toes on Twitter. I appreciate it.
I blame UBC for all this. I became an obnoxious Twitter fan or 49ers fan when EBC came into my life. So.
Oh, you're see, that's the problem. Yeah, because that Chris guy, he's a real problem. People like to say that Grant Cohn's the problem, but it's really East Bay Chris. That's really the guy who you need to watch out for.
Oh no, I trust me. I know he's had a negative effect on me, but I love him so.
He was last week. He was a Rams fan, and I'm glad to see that he's transitioned to Jaguars for this week. So, he has a lot of history to draw upon from his time rooting for the teal and black.
He's doing everything he can for us. You got to give him that. So
yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, man. You have a good night.
You too, man.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Right on. That's I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here in just a second. Let me see if I can find there we go. But I did have this one come in a little bit ago from Harold. Harold, thank you for the donation. This was when Waruna and I were talking about the whole social media aspect and how that's kind of changed the whole landscape around the NFL. Basically, Harold says social media has affected the game in some aspects. Great conversation. I appreciate that. Definitely, it has. It's changed the way that the game is consumed, and it's changed the way that fans are interacting. There's players that are who have always known that go back. They always knew that people talked, but now they can actually see it on their phone or get it right in their face in a way on a daily basis, and definitely has changed the way that the game is played in a lot of different ways. So. There we go. That's the show for tonight. I did see a question over here earlier. Somebody was asking about Wayne Gallman, and old Wayne, he ended up in whatever happened to Wayne Gallman, Eric said, and Wayne ended up in Atlanta as a member of the Falcons. Hasn't really been able to do a whole heck of a lot this year. He has a total of 23 carries for 88 yards. He's averaging 3.8 yards per carry, which is right about his career average, with the exception of 2020. He had a pretty good year, but in 18 and 19, he was at 3.5, 3.8. He's right back at 3.8. That's kind of who he was. He was a good pickup for camp, a good camp body. Just didn't really work out for him in the 49ers, but that's going to be my show for tonight. I'm going to let everybody go. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined. If you could please comment, like, subscribe, do all those fun things that they talk about here on YouTube, that'd be fantastic. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of fun this week as the 49ers get ready to travel out to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars and a chance to get to 500 on the season. So keep it tuned in right back here. I'll be here for sure on Thursday night with the Hammer and Nail Show with my co-host Jesse Naylor, and there'll be some other stuff going on probably on Friday and Saturday as well, leading up to the game on Sunday. So thank you all for joining me here on this Tuesday night. Have a great evening, and thanks again. Bye-bye.